Oh, you guys are not going to like this. Let's talk about it. Before that, this video is brought to you by RGB Swap, a better alternative to eBay that I really think you should take a look at. RGB Swap is a marketplace exclusively for selling and buying computer parts that offers much lower fees than competitors such as eBay, as well as greater protection against scams. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, you're guaranteed to be protected since all orders have to be paid for first, and the funds are held for 48 hours after the buyer receives the item or they leave feedback, ensuring that you never get sold a bad item. Additionally, all disputes are manually reviewed and PayPal is used exclusively for an extra layer of security. I gotta tell you guys, I like this website a lot and I really want it to take off as a better alternative to eBay, so please, if you're interested in buying or selling PC parts online, click the link in the description below and give it a shot. I think you'll really like it. Alright, so some new information about AMD's next generation RDNA 3 RX 7000 series GPUs was just posted online by the Twitter user or Twitter leaker Vegeta, and needless to say guys, it's definitely not good. So let's just go ahead and get right into it and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. So according to Vegeta over on Twitter, which by the way I will have links to all my sources in the description below, he had this to say, quote, RDNA 3 and Zen 4 will be launched around the same time. RDNA 3 will tape out later this year. He then goes on to say Q4 2022. So yeah, it seems like there wasn't really a whole lot that he just posted there, but it actually does tell us a lot about RDNA 3 if it does end up being true, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. But, you know, if this does end up being true, what he's saying here is that the RDNA 3 architecture probably won't be launching till the end of 2022. And, you know, that's actually pretty shocking to hear. It's very disappointing as well because, you know, again, if this does turn out to be true, well, then we could be looking at a situation here where this is one of the longest time periods between two generations that we have ever seen. And if we do take a look at Nvidia's previous, like, very rough timeline as to when they're going to be releasing their next gen architectures, we can see that it just kind of says sometime in 2022 they would be releasing their next generation Ampere GPUs as well. And it kind of starting to look like both of these companies are trying to target the late 2022 rather than the mid or early 2022. And that's very disappointing because, you know, to go 2 years or possibly even over 2 years between these generations is something that I think nobody wants to see. And I think the reason as to why these companies right now, or at least this leak is pointing towards these companies trying to target late 2022 rather than what we're supposing was going to be maybe early to mid 2022, is because of the whole supply and demand issues going on right now. So yeah, it seems like absolutely everything is just getting worse because of these huge supply and demand issues going on. And you know, this could change. It is very possible that what Vegeta is being told here is definitely true. Someone inside one of these companies is telling him, hey, this is the timeline we're targeting right now. However, that could change, and it could end up being that, you know, if supply and demand starts to kind of even out here, they could kind of change their timeline a little bit. I know that these companies kind of have a rough schedule that they have to abide by, so like they probably wouldn't suddenly be like, yeah, RDNA 3 is going to be coming out in 4 years. That just wouldn't really make any sense. Nvidia would start creeping up on them. So they can't change it a ton, but they can move stuff back or move stuff forward by a few months here or there. So, you know, I wouldn't be too surprised if, you know, suddenly supply and demand starts to get itself figured out, and all of a sudden all these RX 6000 series GPUs start getting into the hands of gamers, and then maybe Nvidia starts becoming very threatening with its next generation architecture. Well, then at that point, maybe AMD would be trying to push its next generation architecture forward a little bit and get it out by mid 2022. I do hope that that's the case, and I'm going to go out on the limb here, guys, and say that, you know, I do think that AMD is going to end up targeting mid 2022. I could be wrong here. I just kind of have a feeling. I don't have any inside information on that. The only inside information that I know that kind of was talking about mid 2022, I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I believe Paul from over at Red Gaming Tech was talking about how he was thinking it was going to be mid 2022, and he does have a lot of sources inside AMD and Radeon as well. So between these two different pieces of information that we've got that definitely oppose each other, I do know Paul from over at Red Gaming Tech a little bit more. I've seen a lot more of his leaks, and he's been very on point with the AMD stuff, but at the same time, Vegeta has also had a lot of really good stuff here. But I'm going to go ahead and side with Red Gaming Tech on this one. I think it's going to happen in mid 2022, not late 2022, because late 2022 just seems a little bit too far away. And I think if they do go ahead and do that, just because of the whole supply and demand issues going on right now, they could seriously be, you know, hurting themselves, because AMD has a chance here where if Nvidia isn't going to be ready until closer to late 2022, if AMD comes out sooner with the next generation architecture that's super, super powerful, like RDNA 3 is being rumored rumored to be. Well, if they're able to get that out a lot sooner than Nvidia, well, they could be stealing a whole bunch of market share from Nvidia, assuming that they can get enough of these GPUs created. And that's another reason as to why I believe they're going to try and push these things out a little bit sooner rather than later, is because the RDNA 3 architecture should be based on TSMC's 5nm node instead of their current 7nm node. And I think that's going to be a huge advantage for them to do that, because not only you're going to get the improvements such as clock speeds as well as power draw efficiency increases over the 7nm, but on top of that, right now AMD has all of their products on 7nm. So if I was AMD right now, I'd be looking to try and get something over to 5nm as fast as I possibly can, because, you know, otherwise they're seriously going to be supply constrained for a very long time, as TSMC has a lot of customers and there's only so much of every single node that they can give out to every single customer. So yeah, if I were AMD right now, I'd be trying to buy up as much 5nm process node as I possibly could, and I'd probably be moving over my GPUs to 5nm first, then I'd probably go ahead and move my CPUs to 5nm right after that. And so I do a GPU launch mid-2022, CPU launch at the end of 2022. That kind of makes sense. And then there's rumors of a CPU refresh on TSMC's 7nm or possibly even 6nm near the end of 2021 or early 2022. So that kind of makes a lot more sense to me. And if they did move to 5nm on the RDNA 3 GPUs, that would allow them to diversify their product stack quite a bit and allow them potentially to get a lot more products out the door so that they can finally meet the demand for the PS5, the Xbox Series X. It looks like they're actually meeting demand on their Ryzen processors right now. In fact, I was seeing that over at Micro Center, they were doing a deal for $370 for the 5800X, which is a huge drop over the $450. It seems to be discounted pretty much everywhere, so it's looking good on the Ryzen front. However, those chips are a lot smaller. So I think if they're able to move RDNA 3, which are much bigger chips, over onto the 5nm, they would not only be able to meet demand for the consoles and the Ryzen processors, but also meet demand for their Radeon GPUs as well, and seriously cut into Nvidia's market share, which of course is something that AMD desperately needs to do right now. So yeah, overall, I think they're probably going to be targeting mid-2022. However, we should definitely keep this leak in mind, as he could be correct and it could actually be late 2022 before we see both these architectures, which would definitely be disappointing. But again, I think it's going to be mid-2022. But hey, that's just what I think. Do you think it's going to be mid-2022, early 2022, or even late 2022? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and of course, I'll see you guys in the next video. If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to drop a like. Every time you do so, AMD and Nvidia get more stock. Also, if you want to see more, click here. You won't be disappointed.